This BMW can get up to 7,000 RPM in a flash. And you can become a subscriber to the Audrain Museum Network just as quickly. Hit the subscribe button, do it right now, join our family. Thanks. Everyone knows that I am obsessed by design, and that's one of the reasons why this BMW Z4 really attracts me, because it's got something that's called flame surfacing in the design, and it's this very sharp accents, twisted panels. The designer of the car, Anders Vormer, called it sexy math, which I think is quite interesting, because the surfaces of the car are flowing, but yet they're always turning. And one of the great things I love about some of the Italian coach-built design of the 1950s and 60s is that every panel is constantly in motion somewhere. It's curving in two directions. And this is a car that has a very contemporary sort of edgy look, and yet it refers to that sort of sexy movement in design. One of the things that's also so clever is the fact that I love futurist and cubist art. And this has almost a futurist feel. The futurists loved cars and motorcycles and everything mechanical. And you can see a lot of that in especially the side panels of this car. And of course, there's that wonderful sort of almost Easter egg effect of the Z that appears in the side of the car with the sculpturing around the front fender and the badge on the side of the car. It's a car that is as much fun to be outside of and look as it is to be behind the wheel and drive. And that's something that I think always makes a car something a little special. It adds just that little edge, which I think is absolutely fantastic. I love the way this car looks, and this would be a fun car to wash. You just want to run your hands along the surface. It's amazing. It's a really interesting type of car. We've featured here on the Audrain Museum Network my 1999 Mercedes SLK 235 speed, Antonio's Porsche Boxster from 2002, and there is a great deal of joy to be found in what are now fairly inexpensive roadsters. Roadster seems to have fallen out of fashion once again, but for all their impracticality, they can deliver a great deal of enjoyment. Far more than some of the bigger, more powerful, wider, heavier so-called sports cars on the market today. This is a car that I don't have that much experience with. I have driven the earlier Z3, especially the coupe they call the shoe, which is one of my favorite modern sporty cars. It reminds me a lot of a very, very capable MGB GT. But one of the things that I like about cars of this type, like my SLK and like a Boxster, is the fact that they deliver sports car performance in a thoroughly modern way. They are small, they are fairly light. This car weighs about 3,000 pounds, have adequate horsepower. This is about 330, 340 horsepower. This car, and gobs of torque. So to me, this delivers the kind of performance, that instant response and manageable size and handling that I really like in a sports car. And as I said before, too many of the modern high performance cars are just too big, too wide, too heavy. And you know, you really don't need 600 horsepower to have fun. You just need the right power to weight ratio and a good torque band, both of which this car has. I do love the fact that this is also a very revvy engine, as this BMW engine is known for, this wonderful inline six. And even during the day, they have an orange lit introduction to the red line, which is at 8,000 RPM. The attack goes up to 9. And it must be absolutely screaming at that point. You know, it's the kind of car that would be very comfortable. You can just see sort of cruising along at very high average speeds on the Autobahn. I'll put it into sport mode and we'll get the benefits thereof. Much quicker to rev, immediately more responsive on the throttle, and there's a great solidity to this car as well. This example is not particularly low mileage. It's got about 40,000 miles on it, and there's no squeaks or rattles. And for a convertible, it's also amazingly quiet. You don't get a lot of wind noise. There's a bit of wind noise from the mirrors, but sometimes in a convertible you can get a good deal of wind noise just from the ceiling at the top. But it's quite interesting as I'm driving this car. With each quarter mile that I cover, I'm thinking, maybe this is a car I should investigate. It feels thoroughly BMW in all aspects. My SLK feels very much like a Mercedes. It's got a certain heaviness to it. This has a certain weight to it, but it's lighter in feeling than the Mercedes. Also delivers the power in a totally different way. Mine, supercharged car. Once you put your foot in it, you can get some good responsive power. But this seems to have power from all the way down the range, from about 2,000 RPM, all the way up to where I've taken it so far. Makes a nice noise too. But of course, this is the successor to BMW's first, I want to call it mini roadster, but first small roadster, the legendary Z1, or since it was never sold here in the States, the Z1, which was an extraordinary car. It's one of those examples of a show car that just made it into production with almost no translation. It's known best, just as the Mercedes 300 SL Gullwing is known for its high opening doors. The Z1 is known for its amazing doors which retract into the body. The Z1 certainly had a lot of presence. Of course, as I mentioned, it wasn't marketed in the US. Has a very devoted cult following in Europe. And it's a really neat car. But it sort of, for me, has a little bit of an aspect. The doors make it look slightly like, this is heresy, but a Nash Metropolitan. But nonetheless, it was the start of BMW's adventure with these smaller sports cars. And this one was manufactured at the same time as the Z8, their modern tribute to the 507, the legendary 507 V8 powered sports car that BMW built in the 1950s to great failure. But this is a totally different thing. And I like the Z8. The Z8, I think, is a much more successful collector car than it was a new car. When it was new, I and most people felt that it was wildly overpriced. But as a collector car, I think its virtues are much greater. And this car really feels in many ways like a junior Z8. But again, the Z8 is bigger, I think, than it needs to be. You don't need a car as big as the Z8. The Z8 is certainly much more luxurious than this car. This car's got great design and very good materials used inside, but there's nothing particularly luxurious about this car, which is fine because it's a sports car. They're not supposed to be luxurious. And BMW really made its name with great sports sedans. And when you unleash that spirit in a true sports car, it really is neat. This certainly makes me, I can't say rethink, because I always thought these were neat cars, but makes me look at these in a different light. This might be a candidate to replace my quite beloved SLK. I'm not quite sure, but it certainly, I think, might do the business. Have to check out the luggage space, which will make a big difference for sure, because traveling in one of these cars is absolutely vital. It's a great weekend car. You want to make sure you can actually use it that way. And it's really sporty and responsive, but it doesn't have to be aggressive, which I also like. If I take it out of sport mode now, the inputs are still quick, but not hectic. And it's remarkably civilized. And again, I just keep coming back to the size. This is the size that I want in a car. Well done, BMW, well done. And the great thing about this car, the SLK, the Boxster, is that they're all incredibly affordable. These were very expensive cars when they were new, and now they're available to an entirely new circle of enthusiasts. These are no longer new cars. I mean, 2007 was quite a while ago. It's 2025 now. But it still has, obviously, a certain modernity that encourages its use in modern traffic. And I think that's an incredibly useful thing as well, because after all, we buy cars to use. So that's something I greatly appreciate. So this is indeed a pleasant surprise. I love it.